I'm going to start with a little bit of a story time. I don't know, a couple months ago, I was chatting with a young man that I met on one of these apps. I don't remember which one, honestly. And one of the questions that I ask is what that I ask guys is what is the thing that you're working on this year? Like, what is your big goal for this year? And he shared that something he wanted to do is that he wanted to buy his first house. So, of course, I was super excited because your girl likes real estate. Your girl loves all things buying first homes. And so I asked, what is the thing that is holding you back from meeting this goal? And what he shared was that, he said, well, I need all this money. I'm going to need like $200,000 to buy this house. And he lived in the Boston area. And so I asked, well, how much of a house are you trying to buy? Because that number seems really high. And like if you're trying to buy outside of Boston, you can probably get something for $1 million, maybe 1.5 for 200,000. Sounds a little bit high. So where are you getting that number from? And the response was a whole bunch of different things, but pretty much like he didn't have a real place where he got that number. And so I don't want that to be you. I don't want you to be getting random numbers and thinking that you cannot buy a house because you think that you need all this money that you might not need at all. So today I'm going to walk you through how to actually look at any house and have a realistic estimate for how much money you're going to need to get this house. We're going to be talking about a few things. We're talking about I'll hold on what we're going to talk about exactly. But overall, at the end of this, you should come out knowing exactly how you can look at any house that you want and determine how much you're going to need to buy that house. And how much you're going to need in terms of how much savings you're going to need on hand to buy this house. I am curious, where do you want to buy your first house? Let me know in the comments. We will be looking at some houses in a little bit. So if you let me know where you want to look, we can actually look at real examples based on where you plan on buying. Now, the last house that I bought was in Indianapolis and it cost $136,000, single family house. So a little bit of a question for y'all. How much do you think I needed on hand? How much do you think I needed in cash to buy that house? Let me know in the comments as well, and I will let you know what the answer is to that at the end of this video. So first things first, if you have not met me before, my name is Nobu Musekiwa, and I help women go from frustrated and stressed about their credit to confident and excited to get a mortgage, to buy your first house and build wealth from that first house. So if that is something that you are interested in, make sure you join me on my next webinar that I'm hosting. The comment is pinned at the top of this live, or the link is at the top of this live. I also will just drop a comment in here just so you have it on hand. And of course, if all this is interesting to you, make sure you subscribe to the channel. I will be doing these lives every week to answer your questions, which I'm actually super excited about. Let's see. All right. Oops, wrong place. All right, so I just dropped the link for you to sign up for the webinar so you can do that if you're interested. Now, let me know again, where are you planning on buying your first house? We can talk about that. So the first chunk of money that you're going to need to have on hand is your deposit. So when you're looking at houses with your realtor, you find a house that you like, you're going to offer an amount that you want to pay for this house to the seller. And if the seller agrees to that, you're going to have a contract in place to buy that house. Now, in order for the seller to take that offer seriously, you're going to have to put something that's called a deposit in place, or a deposit or earnest money. That's the same thing, along with that signed contract. And that pretty much just holds that house for you until the whole process is done, right? I'm assuming you're not buying in cash. So if you're buying using a mortgage, it's going to take a while for that transaction to actually finish for the seller to get their money. And so this earnest money or this deposit just kind of holds this house for you in addition to the contract until, the whole process is done. Now, how much that earnest money is going to be depends on where you are buying. So your realtor will give you advice on how much is customary for that deposit. It might be 500, it might be 1,400, it might be 5,000. It depends on where you're buying. So for example, the last house that I bought in Indianapolis, my earnest money or my deposit was 1,400. For the very first time I put an offer on a house, which was years and years ago, it was $500 in New Hampshire. I don't remember what my deposit was in New York City, honestly. But your realtor will walk you through what that earnest money is going to look like. So in terms of that deposit, I don't have a good way for you to estimate because it depends on where you're buying. But the good thing is that deposit money is actually part of your down payment. Now, if you have heard about down payments before, let me know in the comments, like, what have you heard about down payments? What do you think a down payment is? I am checking and I will definitely respond to that. So, like I said, your deposit money is going to be counted as part of your down payment. Now, when I first bought a house, I thought the down payment was the only money that I needed to buy a house. And friends, that is not true. So stay tuned. We'll be walking through other amounts of money that you're going to need to buy this house. But for what a down payment is it is the amount of money that you need to bring to the table in order to make this transaction go through, like for a mortgage. So when a bank lends you money, if you're buying a house for $100,000, the bank is not going to give you that full $100,000. They want to make sure that you have a skin in the game, that you have some kind of money on the table to make this deal work. Part of the reason why they want you to have some kind of money on the table is that banks are actually the most common types of loans are backed by the government. And in order for the government to provide that extra layer of protection for banks, they need to adhere to certain rules. And one of those rules is the borrower has to put in a specific amount of money in order for the bank to go ahead and do this loan. So the most common loans that you're going to be looking at as a first-time home buyer, the most common loans in America are an FHA loan or a conventional loan. So for an FHA loan, the deposit that you need to bring to the table, your down payment is going to be 3.5%. And if you're getting a conventional loan, like the lowest down payment you can put in is 5%. And so what that means is no matter what type of house you're buying, right? Whether it's a 1-family, 2-family, 3-family, 4-family, whether you're buying in LA or Alabama or I don't know where else, Boston, you can put down as little as 3.5% if you are planning on using this house as your primary residence, right? If you're planning on just buying it as a vacation home or buying it just to rent it out, that's a different story. But if this is going to be the main place that you are going to stay, then your down payment is going to be 3.5% at the lowest or 5%. Now, there are other loans where you can get 0% down. We're not going to talk about those because they're very, you have to have certain criteria to qualify. But for most of us, you're putting down 3.5% or 5%. And so y'all didn't tell me where you're buying houses. So I just pulled up a few homes that are available in Indianapolis. I'm going to just switch on over to that. So we can just take a look here. There are all these different options. Let's take, for example, this guy right here. It says this house is $290,000. So doesn't matter. It doesn't matter like where you're buying this. Remember, the deposit for an FHA loan is 3.5% down. That is what you're required to bring. So all you're gonna do is, to figure out 3.5%, you're going to take that 3.5, that 3.5, then divided by 100, right? So that is 0.035. So just take that 3.5 divided by 100, 0.035. You're going to take that and you're going to multiply that by the price of the house. So this particular house is $290,000, like that is the sale price. So if you offer the full amount, so if you decide you're going to buy this house, you're going to pay this full 290, you're going to take that 0.035 and multiply times 290, 000. The 3.5% deposit for this would be 10,150. So that is the deposit. Let's say you want something a little bit more expensive. Okay, let's see this guy. So this house is $474,000. Here we go. Remember, it's a 3.5% minimum down payment. If you're using an FHA loan, you are going to go ahead and take, again, that 0.035. We get that by doing 3.5%. So 3.5 divided by 100, multiply that times 474,900. So for this particular house, your down payment would have to be $16,621. Remember, this includes your that deposit money comes out of here as well, and so you wouldn't have to do this plus your deposit. This is if you want to just estimate what your down payment is going to be, including your deposit. Just do that 3.5% and see how that goes. And guys, wherever you're buying, it's going to be the same. And just for clarification, it is 3.5% of the sale price. So even if like the house we saw where the offer price, the sale price is $474,000, if you put in an offer for $374 and the seller accepts that, then that's where that 3.5 is going to come from. It's going to come from the actual amount that you have agreed upon with your seller to buy this house. Let me know in the comments where you're planning, where you would like to buy a house. And so if you tell me, we can actually look at houses in your specific area. So now, like I said, when I bought my first house, I thought that the deposit was the down payment, keep saying deposit. The down payment was the only money that I needed. And so I had my 3.5%. I thought I was good to go and excited. And then there were all these other costs that started to come up as I was getting ready to close on this house, right? So the offer was accepted. The lender was looking at my stuff, and I kept getting requests to like put money for this, put money for that, put money for that. And then at the end, I definitely did not have enough money. So just so you know, when you are buying your first house, you can actually get some money gifted to you. We'll talk about that at another time. But let's talk about the other chunk of money that you're going to need. And these are your closing costs. So closing costs also include the down payment, but we're gonna walk through exactly how you can kind of sift through both and do a calculation that encompasses the down payment as well. But closing costs include every single cent that you are going to need to buy this house. So, yeah. So in addition to you having to put in a specific percentage of the sale price to cover this loan, there are other little things that you're going to have to pay for in addition to complete this loan. So, for example, your lender might charge you a specific percentage of the loan for them to do the loan for you, right? Because the banks have to make money. And so they might charge you an origination fee. Since we're dealing with buying this expensive piece of property, you're going to have to pay for a title company to do research to make sure that this seller that's saying that they own this house, do they really own the house? Are there any things that could get in the way? Could someone say, no, I own the house? Or what are the actual property lines? So a title company is going to do that research. They're going to look at exactly like what is the type of occupancy for this building. So the seller says it's a 2-family. Is it really a 2-family, or is it actually a single family? So you're going to have to pay for the bank to pull your credit report. You're going to have to pay in advance for taxes on your house. So these are all things that I had no idea were part of the funds that you need on hand to buy a house. Another big one is insurance. So when you're buying this house, you need to pay for your insurance, on that hazard insurance for that house, for the whole year in advance, right? So if it costs $1,200 to insure your house for the year, the bank wants you to pay for the whole year up front, because they don't want the investment to go up in flames and then they can't get that money back from you. And so these are not, some of the things that I mentioned, these are not all the things that are in your closing costs, but these are some major examples. I do have a video that walks through in more detail an actual closing disclosure, which shows you exactly every single penny that you pay in order to complete a mortgage transaction. I will link to that in the description, so you can take a look at that later. And so a big thing that'll cause your closing costs to swing is taxes. So where you are buying your house is going to impact your closing costs, because if you're buying in a state where taxes are low, then property taxes are low, then your closing costs are going to be lower. If you're buying in a place like New York, where, I don't know about the state, but New York City, where property taxes are crazy, then it's gonna cost you more for your closing costs. Additionally, like, states make money off of real estate sales. So in addition to them just charging money for taxes every year, every time there's a sale, there's something called a transfer tax. So depending on where you live, transfer taxes might be high, might be low. So for example, in New York City, your transfer taxes could literally be $7,000, like just for you to buy that house, and that's it. And the last house I bought in Indianapolis, the transfer taxes were, I think, $500. So the closing costs are going to be varying. So you can't look at a friend that bought a house for $200,000, let's say in Dallas, and then you're buying a house for $200,000 in Minnesota. And so you can't say, well, because their closing costs were X amount, how come my closing costs are a lot higher? The big thing that's going to make that difference is the taxes and the transfer fees. And then like smaller things like the origination fees, your mortgage insurance, that's going to be more comparable. And so, but even with all those variations, a good estimate for how much you're going to need for your entire closing costs. So this is every single penny, including the deposit, including the down payment. A good way to estimate that is to take 6% of the sale price and use that as a marker for that number that you should be aiming at for how much you want to have on deck to buy this house. So let's go back to our list of houses over here. If you have a house that you're buying in a specific place, let me know. We can take a look at that. But let's go ahead and hop back into our examples here. So we did this house earlier. So this house for $290,000. So if I don't want to buy a house next year and I just want to have an estimate for like how much should I have saved to buy a house, just hop on, and look at houses that are in the area that you want to buy, and kind of look through and say, okay, like this house, just look through, okay, is this something that would be doable? If not, just find a place that has more of the aesthetic that you want, just so you have an idea of, okay, based on the going rate of the type of house that I want, you can use that as an estimate to do your math so that you have enough money ready to buy your house. So for this house for $290,000, we want to take that 6%. So 6 divided by 100, again, in case you just can't do percentages in your head easily. So that is 0.06. Oh, Siri thinks I'm talking to her and I am not. All right. So 6 divided by 100 is, so 6% is 0.06. So you're going to take that 6%, and this particular house is 290,000. So multiply by 290. So if you want to buy this house for 290, you want to have at least $17,400 available in cash to buy this house. And this is an estimate, so you could use a little bit less, you could use a little bit more, depending on what that your taxes look like in the area. So if you're in a place where you know that taxes are expensive, I would bump this up a little bit more to like that 8% mark. But for the most part, 6% is a great place to start. So if you need a little bit more, the lender can tell you and you can bump it up. Let's go back. We had looked at this other house. I think we looked at this guy for 474, right? So take that 0.06, that is 6%. If that's 6 divided by 100 gives you 6%. And then you're going to multiply that times, this house is 474, 900. So for this particular house, you would need at least 28,494,000. So 28,500 on deck in cash in order to buy this house. So if you're looking to buy a house soon, you don't need to guess. You don't need to be guessing about how much you're going to need to have in cash to buy this house. Just go ahead and jump onto your website of choice to look at houses, whether it's Realtor, whether it's Zillow, whether it's Redfin, whatever it is. Just go ahead and look at the specific neighborhood that you want. And just look at the type of house that you want, the bedrooms, number of bedrooms, the number of bathrooms, if you want a garage, whatever criteria you want, put that in so that it condenses and shows you just those houses with what you want. And then just look through to get a sense of what our overall number is. And then just take 6% of that. And that is a good way for you to have a realistic estimate for how much you're going to need to have in cash to buy that house. If you want to spend more, if you want to save more, that's completely fine. But at the very minimum, start with that 6%. Use that as a specific goal to save towards. And that will give you a much better, a more accurate idea of what you'll need to buy this house, as opposed to, my guy that I was talking to that just pulled the number out of his butt. Okay. So I had asked y'all for that house I bought in Indianapolis, how much you think I needed on hand to buy that house. So that house was $136,000. And for that house, I actually wrote this down because I did a video on this. The amount that I needed in cash to buy that house was $6,385,000. I did get $2,000 from the seller towards closing costs. So if I hadn't gotten that money, it would have been $8,385. I think that's about 5%. Let's see, 8,385 divided by. Let me do some quick math for y'all. 8385 divided by 136. Yeah, so it's about 6% that I would have needed if I did not get that 2,000. So that 6% rule, it's pretty common. It's used often. So use that instead of just guessing. Use that to figure out exactly how much you need. I am curious. Let me know in the comments, once you actually do this for houses in your area, let me know what area you're planning on buying and what that 6% is in your area. Drop it in the comments. I'm curious because, it's going to vary depending on where you're trying to buy your house. And yeah, make sure if you want to buy your first house, I have a whole playlist that is especially for first-time home buyers. So I will go ahead and link that right here. So make sure you check it out because as you buy real estate, if you buy your first house and you buy it properly, you're more likely to gain wealth.